So, welcome to the Korec Trimble User Conference. My first guest, Sven.
How you doing?
Great to see you again.
Good, great to see you.
Yeah.
Finally got us together to do this.
I know, great. I'm not going to start with Soarvo straight away.
No.
I think I'll start with you and a bit of background on yourself and who you are and what you bring to the industry, because obviously you're a common face at many road shows and things like that. And, I've met you quite a few times. So yeah, how did you get into it?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I've been around for a while now, probably around just over a decade working in kind of geospatial and survey, but in different capacities, right? From hardware manufacturers to software solutions to a practice that I ran just over a decade ago back in South Africa. But mainly for the past decade, I've spent here in the UK. I've spent working with some really innovative companies on how we take solutions that really create value to the geospatial survey market. So we can rewind back to the days of GeoSlam, super innovative solution, handheld mapping, really kind of prove the point that you could scan whilst on the go.
Yeah.
You kind of fast forward to the last 5 years I've spent at Navis, which I think most people that listen to this podcast probably know and probably appreciate the solutions that they deliver. But more recently, obviously getting and focusing a lot more on the software space. And I think, this sector specifically is one where hardware innovations accelerate beyond the rate of, really conceptualizing what it means. But where I believe there's a true missing piece and value is in the software.
Yeah.
It's, how do we take all of this incredible data that we've generated through these amazing hardware tools from Trimble and Wingtra and everyone else, how do we turn that into insights for our clients?
Yeah, 100%. Navis was quite a forward-thinking company, especially from the outside and looking at, it was a wearable solution and how can you get that into the market and things like that. And I know you've been at the forefront of why people would purchase that. And now I know you've moved over to Soarvo and stuff. How do you think that developed you as an individual? Because it's quite a different solution rather than the GeoSlam and, terrestrial laser scanning. That wearable solution is definitely different. And you had to be different.
Yeah. I think quite often what happens specifically with hardware solutions is you go to what is comfortable for you and you go back to your norm.
Yeah.
Right. Terrestrial laser scanning, you can go back, 15, 20 years maybe. And, at the time that was seen as this very forward thinking, I'm measuring more than 1 point at a second kind of drive. And when you start to think about revolutionizing hardware in itself, you have to think about what the user is actually going to be doing.
Yeah.
So, terrestrial laser scanning, although you're measuring so much information from a static position, the real value for companies like Navis and even GeoSlam at the time was, how do I ensure that I'm capturing as much information in that amount of time as possible?
Yeah.
The survey industry is one that's always kind of built their time or made their revenue on time, right? You guys are, you charge for time, on site. So how do we how do we take a hardware solution and turn that into actual value?
Yeah.
That was kind of the innovative part of companies like Navis and GeoSlam, specifically on the hardware solutions. And then you fast forward into software, and it's the same logic applies.
Yeah.
How do I take all of this amazing stuff that I've had collected in the field? How do I turn that into something actually valuable?
Do you think that's how you've seen your personal development? You've almost said, okay, I've done the data capture now, and I'm going to go over to Soarvo. And I'm going to develop the side that people can actually use that software and the data capture. So I think that's a massive thing, isn't it, in the industry? Is that there's definitely a gap between data collection and then data usable for any surveyors or the end product.
Yeah, and I think you've touched on such a valid point. My pure interest, seeing hardware companies develop and scale, and really penetrate markets and drive solutions into even different use cases, right? You think about, beyond survey, you think about, facilities management and all these other use cases. But, for me personally, it was, I've seen that development and I've kind of rode that wave, and I've appreciated what it taught me and the experiences that it gave me and the conversations that I get to have with, people like yourself. But the software piece is really one where I've seen that there's a bit of a lag. I think everyone appreciates that there is a definite need to scale that up. And for me, it's the exciting opportunity of seeing how companies like Soarvo can actually really fundamentally change the way that this industry works and interprets and engages with their own customer base.
Yeah.
That was massive for me, right? And the team that's been built around Soarvo, it's just incredibly talented individuals, and I think that's always something that's missed is surrounding yourself with people that you appreciate and respect and can actually admire their vision. That was also really big for me.
Yeah, it's an exciting venture to be in, I suppose. You were brought in to boost the product, be that connection, I imagine, between the surveyor data capturing and actually the software and the people producing the software. And where do you see Soarvo being in developing with you by its side?
Soarvo is in such a really interesting place at the moment, specifically here in the UK and Ireland. The ability to take I said it earlier, the ability to take all of these incredible hardware solutions that are out in the market, from drones to terrestrial scanners to mobile mapping devices and mobile scanners. Soarvo has this really unique opportunity to be the kind of full stop in your geospatial data story, right?
Yeah.
There's fantastic tools out in the market where you are able to consolidate and aggregate all of your data. I think we saw earlier, and probably for your audience, they didn't see it, but Boris from Trimble talking about the aggregation of all of these hardware tools into one single place.
Yeah,
I think where there's a significant missing piece is the actual end user. Who is the end user and the person who's actually going to be using that data? Once it's gone through all these cycles and workflows, who is that person?
Yeah.
Soarvo has this really unique opportunity of being that solution where we've simplified all of this. You think about survey data in a nutshell. It's extremely complicated. Right? It is, and this is why survey degrees and even it's in terms of from a project perspective is such a crucial part. Because
I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot of people who now just think it's not that complicated, and it is, but the data capture is, and if you don't do it right, it can be wrong all the way through any project. But bridging that gap, like you said, is so important to having it usable for everyone.
Exactly.
Everyone.
You said it now. If you get your data capture wrong, the impact that has on a project could be catastrophic, right?
Yep.
And this takes really skilled, really knowledgeable individuals to actually go out and make sure that data is captured in the way that is relevant and against the requirement for that specific project. The person at the end probably doesn't know that,
no.
and nor will they. What they do know is what they see as a result, right? And that's where Soarvo has a really unique position about being, we are this last stop in the story. We are, where users can log in and very simply interpret, understand, manage, collaborate on that data.
Do you see in that being as a single deliverable in the future? So the surveyor might deliver point clouds visually to their clients as a usable solution, something like that.
I think the single deliverable could be the aggregation of the data into one single place. You think about, when you're delivering a project, you're delivering either a point cloud or a CAD drawing or, some type of file. Is the user able to turn these on and off against their specific requirements, right? The design team might want to turn on the point cloud because they're looking at the as-built, but a different team may just want to look at the CAD file and the 2D information. So can the deliverable actually be one single wrapped up solution?
Can they pull individual things out of Soarvo then?
Exactly. So you can pull out individual components that are relevant to you as a stakeholder, whether that's 3D mesh, whether that's a point. You can start to derive what it is that you are doing and the data that you need.
Okay.
And you can then push that out.
That's good, because you could share that then with a team, and they might only pull their bit out. So you're just uploading into one center, really.
Exactly. And the collaboration piece is a big one, right? I think the introduction of cloud and, AWS and Azure and all these other wonderful tools, really were the conduit to allowing that to happen. If you go back, even maybe 5, maybe 10 years into the past, typically you'd be, sticking your data on a hard drive or a USB stick. And, hoping that DHL or Royal Mail get it delivered in time, right?
PDF.
Yeah. Quick email. Let's see. The interesting thing about cloud deployments is, you may have teams that are external to your organization. You may have teams that are completely located, somewhere else, on the planet.
Yeah.
And the ability for all of these individuals to be looking at the exact same information without any fundamental changes is huge, right? And this is, and again, we go back to some of the conversations that are happening here. The construction sector is just flatlined. Completely flatlined in terms of productivity and innovation. One way to overcome that is that teams are collaborating in real time on the same information as quickly as possible. And that's a crucial component to making sure that we're actually driving innovation in construction.
Definitely. I can definitely see, I was one of the first people to give Soarvo a go and input some ideas and things like that. And I can definitely see it. We're very much, as coming from a land surveyor, utility surveyor, it's so frustrating for me not to be able to give clients all of my information. All I do is I create a massive data set, enormous, gigabytes after gigabytes of data set. I then create it all the way down to a 2D PDF, which is just tiny. And you're still putting human interaction into, implementation into it, and you can have errors and things like that. But there's no collaborative collective, like bringing all of your data set together. It's got to be a Google Drive link. It's got to be a WeTransfer link. It's got to be a PDF sent over email, DWG sent over email. It's frustrating on our part, definitely.
Yeah, I can imagine. You guys put a huge amount of effort into this, collecting a huge amount of very, very accurate data.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it gets chopped down until it actually gets handed over to the client. And it's like, well, there's a lot of missing information and insights.
Yeah.
Right? And it's information and insights that but they might not, because they'll never see it on a PDF. And the other thing about it is, where does that PDF eventually go? Where is it after the point that you've emailed it to the clients? Is he sending it on to someone else, or is it being, is there a team meeting where they're all sitting there looking at the same thing? Are they able to manipulate that in a way that is relevant to them? These are the things where we've, as an industry, I think we've missed out a huge piece, right? And it goes back to the same concept of, we are collecting such intelligent data in the field, and we're having to dumb it down to actually get into the hands of the end user.
I think one of the things as well is when you've always got a client that can't even open a PDF because it's too large or too. So I definitely see the view. I'd love these cloud-based solutions where you can view so much even on your phone. And I know Soarvo does that well.
Yeah. So not only can we display the information on your mobile, there is actually a mobile device app. So not only is it this kind of desktop cloud-based solution where you're managing all your data, there's also a push-pull factor to it as well.
Right.
So, the ability to push certain information out to a field user, whether it's, as a simple example, you've identified roof defects and you want to push that out to a contractor on site. Contractors aren't, they don't have the tooling or the accessibility to point cloud viewers and, all this other crazy stuff. So, how can we start to push, very simple things like work orders out to a user with a mobile app to say, there is a defect on that roof, please go fix it. And when it is fixed, push it back to us.
Wow.
So, when it's coming back into the solution from a desktop perspective and an office perspective, we know it's being fixed. We know by whom, we know when, and we know exactly where it was.
I didn't realize Soarvo is so big now. Going into that, that's good.
It's huge, right? And I think the mobile app is a piece where, I think we need to pay a little bit more attention to it, and obviously we will. But it's a component that allows us again to go to the end user, and for companies like yourselves in the survey space to actually go to the end user and say, I've got a fully working solution for you to use. Not only am I sharing the data with you, but I'm actually giving you a tool that enables you the ability to actually deliver your work.
And I suppose over multiple projects.
Multiple users, multiple locations.
Yes.
It wraps it all into this neat little bundle, which makes it accessible to non-experts.
Right. Is there anything you want to add? What does Soarvo bring to the industry, would you say, is different from other solutions?
And I think the way that this statement can be interpreted might be different. It's simplicity. One of the major things that we we've recognized over this journey, Soarvo's only been active in the market since Feb, right? But since that point in time, we've had multiple conversations with potential customers and partners and guys like yourself. The simplicity of the solution is what is adding a huge amount of value to us, or adding a huge amount of value into market. It is, can we take this thing, which is very complicated and complex, and can we put it into a form where everyone can access it?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing for us.
Amazing. Thank you for your time.
Awesome.
And first guest, brilliant, Sven.
Love it.
Excellent. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, buddy.